Hello everyone, I am the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have absolutely breaking news coming out of Ukraine as the Ukrainians were able to strike the Russian 8th Guards Combined Arms Army headquarters inside of the area of Donetsk. We do understand at this moment that it appears that some of the general staff may have been inside of this headquarters, and so the casualties may be significantly high in profile for the Russian armed forces and may once again be posing a major issue for the Russian offensive in Pokrovsk, as that was largely being led by the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army that was based out of the small town of Pokrovsk behind the city of Donetsk. Meanwhile, outside of that area, we were able to hear that a major Ukrainian drone strike has occurred in the city of Engles, south of the Volga, just near to the city of Saratov. As a major fire is now beginning to envelop the entirety of the oil depot, it does appear that the oil resources that were available to the Russian Air Force and other Russian military assets along the Volga within this region will most likely be completely cut out, as we are still continuing to see this fire is raging completely uncontrolled, and the Russian Federation appears to have absolutely no ability to stop the loss of such a strategic oil reserve at this time. And not only that, we have also got continued news outside of Los Angeles, as we have been able to hear that the Palisades fire, the Hearst fire, and also the Altadena fire is continuing to go on, and it appears that the city of Los Angeles is completely unprepared to deal with the blazes, and it seems as though they are rapidly spiraling out of control, as multiple evacuation orders are still being issued throughout certain areas of the city as the fire begins to reach those areas. We have got a load of news to cover today, but moving back out of the United States and into Ukraine, and specifically into the area around Donetsk and this town of Kharkiv, we have a major piece of news that came out of this area. The Russian armed forces operate through multiple combined arms armies that are inside of the Ukraine theater. Combined arms armies are practically the largest scale unit that can be seen on a strategic sense in the war. It is quite literally an army-sized unit. And one of the army units, the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army, is currently the one that is holding down the Donetsk area and also conducting the offensive heading towards Pokrovsk. We have seen that that offensive has not really been wildly successful now that they've been embroiled in the heavy battles in the fields outside of the town of Pokrovsk, or the city of Pokrovsk more so, but nevertheless, the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army's headquarters is a very important place, and one that seems to have avoided being hit by the Ukrainians up until this point. From what we understand, the headquarters is somewhere within the small industrial suburb of Kharkiv, which is right outside of the city of Donetsk. There are several major industrial sites that we can see here, such as a pipe plant. We actually have one of these near Enforcer headquarters here in Birmingham, but nevertheless, this town has served as the command headquarters for the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army for the entirety of the conflict, for the entirety of the Battle of Donetsk. We did not know this until today, when we heard that Ukrainian forces were able to launch a precision strike onto the headquarters inside of this town, and were able to pose significant damage to the headquarters. And we were able to see some clips right here showing us the extent of the damage. We can see here that they're filming some sort of smoke behind them on the road after the strike hit the building right off the highway to the right, and the smoke is now traveling across the highway. We can then see in our next clip, someone has gotten a little bit closer to the building and is starting to show the debris and damage from the now defunct 8th Guards Combined Arms Army headquarters. And moving on from that clip and into our next one, we were also able to see that the Ukrainian general staff was able to report that they did strike the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army headquarters and were successfully able to destroy it. We do have some additional information about this as well, as we were able to see that the command post was hit. This is a somewhat shorter clip of one of the last ones, but once again showing us the debris and the damage that exists around this headquarters. Hitting an army-sized headquarters is usually a very significant ordeal, especially if this was the main headquarters of the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army that was hit inside of Kharkiv. Usually, a military has multiple different command posts. They have a primary one and then several others for every other level of command, so that way if one headquarters is knocked out, another one can immediately pick up the functions of the now destroyed headquarters without really skipping a beat. However, that is not to say that major field commanders or general staff couldn't end up being killed in this strike. At the moment, the casualties are unclear, but the significance of such a strike is major, and it is showing that Ukrainian intelligence is continuing to work very hard to be able to find out where these headquarters are. Usually, their actual whereabouts are kept very closely as a secret by both sides, and so it is very interesting to see that they were able to not only find the headquarters, but then strike it and destroy the headquarters, possibly causing significant casualties inside of the building when the strike occurred. We will be waiting for more information on this. It is the case that this is far behind the lines, and the Russians will most likely start to hide a good bit of information about this, so our best bet to actually get any kind of reliable casualty report, or even just a semi-reliable casualty report, will be to wait to hear what the Russian military bloggers hear about the losses that were seen inside of that headquarters, because they will most likely be reporting on it within 24 hours. But this is still a significant strategic blow to the Russian Federation within this area, and will already be causing another major hiccup in the Pokrovsk offensive that already saw a major comeuppance earlier when the Ukrainians were able to conduct a limited counterattack and push the Russians in a small area off the railway berm and back towards the town of Yakhinivka, showing that the Russian Federation is still having some very serious issues conducting offensive battles in the fields of Donetsk. But moving on from that and outside of that area, we were also able to hear that the Ukrainians were able to hit a major fuel depot within the town of Engles quite significantly, and it appears that the fire is currently raging out of control. There are several oil depots throughout the territory of the city of Engels, but the one we want to talk about is the largest one right down here. This is a significant oil depot, and it would be a little bit more of a stretch to say it was an oil depot. It's actually a fuel depot. It doesn't store crude oil, and it doesn't store any kind of usable fuels that are very oily based. It's more so gasoline, diesel, and some jet fuel from what we understand. This is possibly some sort of a storage facility for the Engels Air Base over here that operates a large amount of the Russian strategic air fleet. There is a small fuel storage depot on this airfield, but we also assume that that may be connected to the larger fuel storage depot down here. Nevertheless, this is a very important fuel depot for really all operations that revolve around the Engels area, especially the strategic air fleet, as this seems to be their primary source of fuel outside of the airbase. We were able to hear that the Ukrainians did successfully strike the oil depot a little while ago, and we were able to see that a fire then began on the compound, which we can see right here. We see someone driving across the Volga on the bridge. Now we can see the giant pillar of smoke in the distance from the facility. We were also able to see in this clip as well another major pillar of smoke, a couple actually, from the facility as the fires continue to burn. We can actually see this is a very important geolocator right here. You can actually see the railroad tracks that are right in front of the facility, right here as a matter of fact, which is the area that they're crossing at. And we can see both of them diverging, one of them going left and the other going right. So it does appear that this is the exact area on the facility that we are seeing here on the maps. So these people are actually on the southern side of the facility looking northwards. And based off of that, it does seem as though the fire is on the very northern end, most likely with one of these isolated cells of tanks on the northern side of the facility, because that appears to be where the fire is coming from, at least at this point. Nevertheless, the firefighters of the Russian Federation were on the scene and attempting to try and put out the fire as soon as they possibly could. But that was not really any success, as the fire appears to have continued to burn completely out of control. It's a very significant blaze, one that could not be understated at all, as, of course, as the fire continued to grow throughout the hours, it started to be quite visible that the flames were beginning to skyrocket literally into the skies from the city of Engels itself, which we can see in this picture right here. As I was saying earlier, firefighters did arrive and were attempting to put out the fire, but it doesn't appear that that will be any success whatsoever, as they literally stand in the middle of a giant oil slick, hoping that it doesn't catch on fire, I guess. I see them trying to put out some flame retardant foam. Might not really be that usable or successful in a major scale fire like this. It is literally lapping off the sides of one of the tanks beside them from top to bottom, and doesn't really appear that it's going to be stopping anytime soon. But of course, this hit is a major one. Hitting an oil depot at this point in the war usually spells a disaster for the Russian Federation in some sort of a long-term picture. As a matter of fact, we were able to confirm that the Russian Federation is beginning to have to shut down oil pumps because there is no longer an area, any kind of an area for that matter, to be able to store crude oil, much less refined fuel products. And so for this reason, we are now starting to see that the Russian Federation is shutting down major oil fields. And when these major oil fields are shut down and the frost arrives, it actually will start to pretty much encapsulate the drills in the ground where they are and make these pumps unusable by the next year, especially considering the kind of frigid conditions that exist in most Russian oil fields year-round. These drills will largely start to succumb to the permafrost that exists around them. With this in mind, this means that many major Russian oil fields will have to be re-drilled in the future, a major economic undertaking, and one that usually is only supposed to be undertaken once and never again, and then that is supposed to be the financial investment that returns profits indefinitely until that oil field is exhausted. That will not be the case. The Russians will literally have to re-drill practically all of the fields to be able to get their oil functions up and running again. And this means that for now, the Russians may be trying to save themselves a major economic woe at this moment because they don't have anywhere to store the oil, but it's going to be causing them an even larger economic pitfall later, as they will have to try and re-drill to be able to reopen these oil fields and return them back to pre-war production levels. This is most likely going to be another financial death knell to the Russian Federation as time goes on. Of course, not immediately, but in time, most likely a couple of years. Moving on from that and outside the Russian Federation, it's now time for us to move on to the major fires that are occurring around the city of Los Angeles at this time. We were covering this yesterday, and yesterday the fire inside of the area around Santa Monica had reached a size of around 1,200 acres. This is a very significant area and practically covered the entirety of the Pacific Palisades. This was something that seemed to be a bit of a serious issue at the time, but we were able to hear that other major fires have begun near to the area of Altadena, specifically near the Bailey Canyon Wilderness Park in the Eaton Canyon Falls direction, and we now have heard of a new fire called the Hearst Fire that has begun up near the area of Santa Clarita on the side near to San Fernando. The situation appears to be very serious, and at this time, we were able to hear that according to the fire chief of the city of Los Angeles, they have admitted that they were not ready for this type of a disaster. This is something that isn't really good. Many people would assume that major cities would usually have some sort of a fallback plan in the event of an earthquake, a major fire, or a major electricity outage, or any other kind of a civil emergency, but it doesn't appear that the city of Los Angeles actually was truly prepared for fires to begin practically in the city and then start to spread rapidly. And this may be the reason why we are seeing that firefighting efforts appear to be a lot more disorganized and disjointed and a lot less effective, is because there was no actual firefighting plan in place in the city of Los Angeles to be able to deal with these major infernos. This is largely a fault of the civil administration of the city of Los Angeles, that they had not prepared or attempted to prepare for emergency circumstances such as major fire outbreaks within the area of the city of Los Angeles. I would say, of course, this channel is only reporting news, and we're going to keep it that way, but I would say that a serious investigation by state and federal authorities should be conducted into the civil administration of the city of Los Angeles, because that form of largely, I would say, near criminal negligence or incompetence to not prepare for such an emergency, considering that California is generally a state that is always prone to major fire hazards or major fire incidents, seems to be a major oversight, in my opinion, and has jeopardized the lives of many citizens of the city of Los Angeles, and is currently putting a lot of economic abilities of the United States of America into serious jeopardy, considering that Los Angeles is one of the largest cities economically inside the United States of America. However, we have been able to hear that sunrise in LA was a very interesting sight today, near apocalyptic as a matter of fact. This is a person who is watching as the sun is rising over downtown LA in the middle of the morning, and the smoke is so severe, it looks like the beginning of an apocalyptic movie.
Never, ever, ever seen anything like this. I've been living here for 6 years. There's so much sun. You can actually see it. This is wild. See how dark it is over here? This is where the Eden fire is, over in there. Crazy.
Actually, correction. I just realized, looking at the geolocations here, he actually looked over at the Griffith Observatory. I'll actually show you all this, so that way I can correct my own geolocation on the spot here. He actually looked to the left from where he was, somewhere up in the hills, and he was able to see the Griffith Observatory to his left, showing the Eden Fire, which is currently near Altadena here on the map, and showing where the smoke was coming from there. But then when he turned back and looked, he was actually looking at Century City, which does look a lot like downtown LA. I just want to say that, in my defense, I am wrong. And that is, of course, something that needs to be corrected. But nevertheless, he's actually not looking at downtown LA. Downtown LA is way over here, which would largely almost be out of view of someone up in these hills. Century City is a lot easier to see, but he's also seeing the fire and the smoke of the fire sweeping over Century City as it's making its way deeper into the city of LA. And that's what we were seeing at that time. So I want to make sure that we make that correction so that we all know exactly where that video footage was being made, instead of believing that it's looking straight at downtown LA. It's actually looking at the built-up areas of Century City. But moving on from that and into the areas around the Pacific Palisades, we were able to see that firefighters, as of this morning, are reporting that the fire hydrants have been exhausted, as there is no water currently coming out of any of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades, meaning that the fire is practically impossible to control at this point, and that the fire may continue to rage well out of control on into the future, as we see that it is now starting to threaten the areas of Santa Monica proper, as well as the area of Brentwood. We have also been able to see that the devastation of the fires has been significant, as some people have been able to venture into the burned out areas and start to show the absolute scale of the damage, as practically no houses or buildings are left standing after the. It is unfortunate to see this level of devastation and damage. Not only is it significant damage to a great deal of nice people who are just working like any other Americans to get by in life, but it's also the devastation of a major economic zone of the state of California, and therefore the United States of America, near to the area of the Santa Monica beaches, which is a major economic hot point for tourism, and it does appear that a large amount of the area is destroyed at this moment. We were also able to get some more unfortunate footage of the destruction that now has largely wrecked an entire area of northwestern Los Angeles.
Okay, I guess let's park along this street, yeah? And then, Dave, if you can, just
Oh my.
go ahead of us and try to set up a signal.
Right here, right here. This is where it's gotta be. This is, oh my God. What? I've never, look at this. Beyond comprehension. Oh. That's very sad.
It's a very unfortunate scene, and of course many people may have actually succumbed to the fire overnight. We're not entirely sure. City authorities have not been able to confirm any casualties that have been caused by the fire yet. Nevertheless, we have been able to hear throughout the course of the night that many people have called into 911 saying that they have been surrounded by the flames, and then we have not been able to hear, in many instances, updates of those cases to be able to know whether those people were able to escape the fire or not. If the fire begins to sweep over someone, even if they're in a somewhat protected position, they most likely will end up succumbing to the blaze, most likely due to suffocation, as the fire will begin to consume the oxygen that they are breathing in within that area, and it will create a void, meaning that there is no air for them to breathe, and they will then suffocate, regardless whether the flames actually reach them or not. We were also able to see that further down the way towards Big Rock that there was a decent amount of destruction even in this area as well, as it does appear that the fire is still fresh in this area, and this seems to be very close to one of the periphery edges of the fire as it continues to work towards Malibu and deeper in towards Santa Monica. That's seeing that clip, but still a very unfortunate thing to see. Meanwhile, we have been able to hear that preparations are being made to evacuate the entirety of Malibu proper. This was stated just a short while ago, around 40 minutes before we started recording, and it does appear that the city of Malibu has just ordered residents to prepare for evacuation, and it seems as though they will be evacuating the entirety of Malibu, as it may also succumb to the blaze and be burned entirely to the ground before the end of the next day. We're not entirely sure how fast the fire is going to be progressing. Fires are usually very erratic in their progression and sometimes can slow or completely change directions based on the major winds that are carrying them, but at the moment it does appear that still Santa Monica and now the town of Malibu are under direct threat of being burned to the ground from the Palisades fire. We have not gotten a lot of video or picture evidence right now of the fire that's currently happening at Altadena, named very aptly the Eaton Fire. We currently do not know anything about its progress at this moment on this channel, but we do understand that it is a very significant fire. It's just that we have not been able to confirm whether it's affecting any civil areas of the city of Altadena. However, we have been able to hear that the Hearst fires further north towards Santa Clarita are beginning to spread a lot more rapidly as well, and we can see that firefighting aircraft have been brought in to attempt a slowing of the fire's progress. Moving on into our next clip, we were also able to see another firefighting aircraft dropping water from the Pacific into the area around the fire, once again attempting to slow its blaze as it starts to make its way over the mountain and towards the major town of Santa Clarita. At this moment, the fires are, of course, incredibly virulent, and it appears that there is no sign of stopping them. We have been able to hear that firefighting efforts in practically all three fires have been largely ineffective, and the fires are continuing to burn out of control. At this moment, it would be very tough to say who is to blame for such a thing. It could just be that once these fires break out, the veracity and speed at which they grow means that really no city, no matter how well prepared or poorly prepared they are, would not be able to control the fire. However, it is always alarming to hear that the fire chief of the city of Los Angeles has said that the city was not prepared for this scale of a disaster, or for that matter, for the scale of a fire at all, as it is starting to lead us to believe that either the statement is saying that the scale of the fires has grown so quickly that no matter how well prepared Los Angeles was, it's largely out of their control, or they are saying that the city administration and the civil authorities did not order the fire department to prepare contingency plans, and for this reason, the fire department did not have contingency emergency plans for when a situation like this would arise. Hopefully, we'll be able to get a clarification from the fire chief as to what that statement meant, because at this moment, it does seem to show that there may have been some incompetence or negligence on the behalf of city authorities that has created a untamable situation. The fire department was not prepared, and while many heroic firefighters are on the ground right now risking their lives to be able to put out this fire, the city was not able to prepare a proper emergency contingency plan to ensure the safety of those firefighters, to be able to ensure that they would even be able to contain the fire and also protect the citizenry as well. Still, if you are from the city of Los Angeles, I do urge you to listen to civil authorities, as descending into panic and chaos will only make the situation worse. Hopefully, a proper investigation can be launched after the fire has eventually fizzled out, and we will be able to see why in the world the city of Los Angeles did not have contingency plans for such a major incident that is very conceivable considering the conditions that exist in California that have always created major and historic wildfires. But beyond that, that is the end of the news that we have today. I have to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching, and if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. And if you've made it to this point of the video, and you want to let me know that you've made it, make sure to put Malibu in the comments section below, spelled M-A-L-I-B-U, down in the comment section below. That's Malibu. Put it in the comment section below. The reason why I want y'all to put Malibu down there is because hopefully the people of Malibu will be safe, and I'm sure that many people who may be watching this video who are from Malibu would like to know that many people have their best interest in mind and are wishing them the best for their safety. Hopefully the fire won't even reach them, but if it does, they will know that a lot of people in the United States and around the world have their back in such a perilous and dangerous time. But nevertheless, thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.